Good afternoon, everyone. We're at the top of the hour, so to respect everyone's time, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon or morning if you're West Coast friends joining us. I am Caleb Dean. I'm the grant coordinator here at the Creative Arts Collective for Christian Life and Faith, based at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. And we just wanted to provide some time and space this afternoon for you guys to join us and learn a bit directly from our team around another one of our grant programs. So we recently launched our first competitive cycle for our Artist in Context grant program. We launched the program initially with 5 invitational grantees that began their grant cycle this past July. And those projects are underway right now, and we've had the opportunity to experience some of those so far. But this cycle, we are opening up the cycle to everyone to submit letters of inquiry for your project ideas. So we're just going to spend some time today just chatting a little bit about um, who the Creative Arts Collective for Christian Life and Faith is, some of our goals and objectives and core values, just to give you a sense of the kind of projects that we're hoping to connect with and fund. And then we'll dive into some of the information specifically around the Artist in Context grant program and how it differs from some of the other grant program options that we have. So we will just keep moving. And also, if you're joining us, we'll probably have people popping in the first few minutes here as we get started. If you don't mind it, please keep your microphones turned off until the end during the Q&A session. We want to keep as much time as possible for the Q&A to give you as much opportunity to ask questions and connect with our team. But if you could just keep your mics off just until that time to prevent any distracting background noise, we would appreciate it. So we, as said, we're the Creative Arts Collective for Christian Life and Faith, and we are primarily a grant-making organization based out of Belmont University with the charge to catalyze a nationwide movement in Christianity and the arts, which aligns with our vision, which is to create and amplify a movement in Christianity and the arts. And we do that day to day by furthering the Christian story through the arts. Those are sort of undergirded by our 3 core objectives, which are create, educate, and network. The Artist in Context grant program focuses on the create objective, which we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a few minutes. But for now, I'm going to pass the torch to my friend and colleague, Nick Baird Crissahan, who is going to dive into some of the more key specifics around what is Artist in Context, what do we mean by that, who does that program apply to? So I will pass the baton over to Nick now.
Thank you, Caleb. And hello, everyone. My name is Nick. As Caleb noted, I am the Associate Director of Programming for the CAC, and the Artist in Context program is one of the programs that are in the convening strategy of the CAC, but we co-lead this with our grant making team, which of course is Caleb and my colleague Courtney. On my team, who will be assisting with me on the call today, is our new program coordinator, Jesse Cook. And yeah, Jesse's waving. So I'm super excited to have Jesse on the team. And then those of y'all who are familiar with the CAC know that I have the honor and privilege to work with a fantastic theologian and thinker who would blanch if he heard me say I am honored and privileged, Dr. Steve Guthrie. He's a wonderful guy, and so he will be facilitating the program. But for the sake of the nuts and bolts of this conversation, I'll be presenting today. So the Arts and Context program was birthed out of this idea that while we have all of our competitive grants that are doing these wonderful things for large scale projects, there's still something to be said for an artist that is working within a context. And so we envisioned this program with our first cohort of 5 artists and their related institutions as being a place where an artist can be part of the firmament of that place to really build art and programming around the celebration of the arts without it necessarily being one big project. That, of course, is a possibility, but we want to allow a lot of flexibility in what this program looks like. And so, as far as the nuts and bolts goes, thank you, Caleb, for moving into the overview for me. The Artists in Context Grant Program seeks to support U.S. based. I want to highlight that we can only serve domestic projects, and organizations here at the moment. U.S. based churches, orgs, and institutions to host an artist and community for a 1-year program to create and curate works of art that inspire people to discover and live the beauty and wisdom of the Christian story and encounter God through the arts. So this host organization institution will be alongside the artist, as it says. We want to make sure that there's a good partnership there. These organizations can be churches, they can be arts collaboratives, arts orgs, nonprofits, faith-based nonprofits, educational institutions. The goal being that the artist is working not on their own, but alongside an organization in a context that has a place within a community. And so those are the eligibility requirements. Again, as noted, that they must be in the United States. These grants will range from $50,000 to $80,000, and we anticipate awarding approximately 5 grants. So our first cohort was made up of 5 artists and their institutions, and we look to maintain that. Um, I'll go through this slide and then I'll say a few more words. The selection process, so applicants will be selected based on their previous creative work and the promise of future work, some experience, some engagement, quality, relevance, explanation of the program ideas. We've had folks ask if they can submit a portfolio. We will have a link for that. Caleb will point that out as we walk through the letter of inquiry. But give us an idea of who you are, what your art is, and as well as the host institution, if you wanted to kind of give some information there, there's room for you to put portfolio links and social media, that kind of thing. And of course, we can answer questions on that in the Q&A at the end. This grant funding can cover a variety of costs. We say, artist wages, materials, supplies, production, venue, et cetera, et cetera. These funds cannot go towards capital expenses, endowment expenses, or general operational costs for the organization. By the scope of the program, we don't anticipate that being a big issue, but I just wanted to state that on the outset that there are restrictions on what grant funding can be used for. So feel free to ask questions. We want to be as clear about what this is and is not as much as possible so you feel confident moving forward in your application process. So in addition to those things, I just wanted to kind of briefly say that there are a couple of expectations that are built into the Artists in Context program. One of which is this is a collaborative effort. So the artist institutions will be part of a cohort that will meet semi-regularly to make sure that you can learn from each other, you can innovate, collaborate, all those fun VATE words. Things that kind of bring you together. We really want to build a network from this program. And so we encourage and we'll be facilitating as much as we can some connection across all the various awardees. I also will note that part of it will be meetings regularly with a grant manager, likely myself and Jesse, but we have others on the team who might take you on as part of their portfolio. So you'll have a personal relationship with someone on our team who can kind of be a Q&A type person for you. You'll also be facilitated by Dr. Steve Guthrie, who I mentioned earlier. I'd recommend, if you don't know much about Steve, look into his work. Steve is one of our mainstay faculty here in our School of Christian Theology, Theology and Christian Ministry. Just really big, heavy hitter within the theology and arts world. So you'll want to be familiar with him and his work if being part of this group. And so those are kind of the two stipulations. Also, being part of the grant program, Caleb will note that there is an interim and a final report that are part of this process. And so Caleb will speak a little bit more about that later on the presentation. And so I turn it back over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Nick. And so now we're just going to move into some time looking at sort of Creative Arts Collective as a whole and how we are hoping to um, sort of the expectations that we have for our awardees, what we expect of them to align with our core values and core objectives. So, as I mentioned earlier, the CAC has three core objectives: create, educate, and network. The Artist in Context grant program focuses specifically on that first create objective with the idea of an artist creating a new work within the context of the host community. So it's pretty self-explanatory, creating and curating new works of art with the intended outcome of an increased visibility of the arts and appreciation of diverse forms of artistic expression that inspire people to encounter God. And we have cast a very wide net on what we hope that to be. We're hoping to cover the full spectrum of all artistic expression. So that can include, but is certainly not limited to music, architecture, dance, film, literature, visual arts, theater, and new media, which by new media, we're meaning sort of these new more recently introduced forms of media, like animation is one good example, or we're in the age of virtual reality, augmented reality. We're exploring options to engage with people who are operating creatively in those spheres. So the spectrum is wide. It's a wide cast net. So thinking of the host institutions, whether that's a university, a church, an artist collaborative, the possibilities are endless of what can be created. In that same vein, so we wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about the sort of overarching aspirational aim of the Creative Arts Collective. That is kind of our sort of guiding light, if you will, of where we hope to, as we're doing this work day to day, as we're partnering and connecting and building this network within Christianity in the arts. Where is it that we want to end up? What is the goal that we're moving toward? So that is to inspire people from diverse contexts to discover and live the beauty and wisdom of the Christian story and encounter God through the arts. And so, kind of reiterating what I mentioned earlier with our vision and mission. So, to advance this aim, we seek to catalyze an awe and wonder filled movement for the arts that will reinvigorate Christian arts traditions across the United States. And we accomplish this through shared core values and a reflection on an annual biblical theme. So now we're going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about what are those core values. These are the values that we as a team and as a collective network adhere to, and that we have identified are particularly significant and important markers for what is the work that we want to be putting out into the world as we're furthering the Christian story. And so these are the core values that we ask and expect applicants and certainly any awarded grants or awarded artists to Artists in Context to adhere to, and that their projects align with these core values. So the first being theological ecumenicity, which is a conversation and cooperation among diverse Christian groups celebrating the deep and persistent elements of Christian faith. So ecumenicity is sort of another word for multi-denominational, if you will. So we at the CAC, we see the richness and the value in the wide diversity of the expressions of the Christian faith. So we are not aligned with any particular denomination, and we are not limiting the projects that we fund to be aligned with any particular denomination or denominations. And so, again, it's a wide net. So whether you are coming from a Roman Catholic background, a Methodist background, a non-denominational Pentecostal background, an Eastern Orthodox background, whatever, the full breadth of the expression of the church in the earth, we want to connect with you, and we want to see and and elevate the value and the beauty of the Christian story that your particular tradition brings. In a similar vein, the core value of diversity, which is our commitment to nurture and showcase the nation's full range of diversity in the arts and among artists and communities. So that can be ethnic, racial diversity, socioeconomic, generational, the list goes on and on. That could be rural communities, urban communities. We want to we're I think you're getting the point of we're not limiting to certain demographics, we're not limiting to certain geographic areas within the United States. And so we're seeking to partner and fund projects that are expressed in a variety of different communities throughout the nation. Again, in a similar vein, this idea of collaboration, which is a spirit of creative collaboration across business sectors, churches, nonprofits, and diverse academic contexts and platforms. So again, it's kind of just reiterating that idea that we've cast this wide net of even the type of organizations and individuals that we hope to partner with. And we are really looking for projects that are going to engage collaboratively across those sectors as well. So, perhaps it's an artist collaborative that has a connection to a local church in that community. That's excellent. Perhaps it's an art school that is engaging with various business or nonprofit organizations in a community. So you get the idea of just cross collaborative bringing. We really love the idea of getting people together and connecting people who otherwise may not be in the same space or in the same just may not have that opportunity to connect. And we recognize the unique power of the arts and faith to kind of be that bridge of connection. And lastly, this may be a term you're familiar with, it may not be, the concept of traditioned innovation, which is the idea of holding the tension of the rich wisdom found in historic traditions of the Christian faith and the arts, and the need and space for innovation that allows seeing that wisdom in fresh ways. So that's kind of the idea of recognizing these ancient truths that are at the core of who we are, the core of our faith, the core of the ministry of the church on the earth. However, recognizing that the Holy Spirit is always doing a new thing. And artists are particularly, I believe, able to see and sense those new things that the Lord is wanting to do and communicating the message of Scripture, the message of the gospel into the earth. And so we're looking at, those established artistic traditions like literature, music, dance, theater, but we're also looking at these new experimental, fresh ways of um, doing the arts and communicating the truth of the Christian story through those mediums. So we can certainly those are kind of high level, heady ideas. We're more than welcome to answer any questions you have about those either during this time or offline, email, however you would like to get in contact with us. So in addition to our core values, we also have an annual theological theme that we invite applicants to reflect on. I will say before passing the baton back to Nick, who's going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the current theme. I will say that the reflection on the annual theme is an invitation, not a requirement. So in your project proposals, you can reflect on this specific theme, Finding Freedom in the Wilderness, which is an elaboration on the Exodus story. However, it's not a requirement. As long as you can show that you're able to reflect on the narrative of Scripture in a substantive way, that is going to be just as sufficient to us as we're reviewing and making decisions on these proposals. Whether you reflect on the specific annual theme or not is not going to make any difference as far as the decision that we make, as long as you can reflect substantively on theological themes and on the story of Scripture. So with that in mind, I will pass the baton back to Nick.
You don't have to pass it to me long. Caleb did a great job of kind of highlighting the main scope of the theme. As you notice, it's based on the book of Exodus, where we get many stories of God's liberation of the people. And so folks will often ask, well, if I want to use the theme, to what extent do I need to use the theme? And that's the beauty of being an artist. I think that in this day and age, just like all the days and ages before us, many folks need to experience liberation, have experienced liberation, will experience liberation, and they'll find freedom in that liberation. And so, you can use your theological imagination, to borrow the Judith Bright concept around it, that this is part of God's kairos with us, that we are always seeking that freedom, and we often find ourselves in multiple wildernesses throughout our lives. So feel free to, as Caleb has the slide up here, read through the thematic elements on our website. You can get in the grant materials. I'm not telling you anything that you won't see somewhere on the website. So feel free to kind of play with that, use that. And if you, of course, don't feel that it's going to really fit your program, that is okay. We don't bias towards it, but we like to maintain a certain liturgy of our own in the grant program here.
Okay, thank you so much, Nick. All right, so we are almost at the end of our sort of presentation time, but perhaps the most important piece of this is actually what are the mechanics and the logistics of actually what is an LOI? How do I submit an LOI? So we're going to spend a few minutes now just walking through those sort of less exciting, but very important pieces of the puzzle. So our LOI or letter of inquiry submission period is currently open for a couple more weeks. That will close on December 19th at 5 p.m. Central Time. So please note that it's not an 11:59 p.m. submission deadline. It is a 5 p.m. That's just to help us with some internal processes of having that specific time. So just make sure you note that. Still about 2 weeks to submit that. So a letter of inquiry is essentially kind of a bird's eye view of your idea. It's an opportunity to help you kind of flesh out your idea with some guiding questions. And then obviously on our end, as we're reviewing that, to give us a good idea of who are you, what are you thinking about doing, how does this project align with the Creative Arts Collective and our overarching objectives and values. And so we'll take a look just at these processual things. So eligibility and selection criteria. Interested churches, arts affiliated organizations, faith-based nonprofit organizations, or educational institutions within the United States are eligible to apply. As Nick mentioned earlier, this is a funding range of $50,000 to $80,000 to be used over a 1-year period. The Artists in Context Grant Program will follow sort of an academic year model. If you're not familiar with that, that's essentially a July start time to a June start time. So with this submission period, these grants would be awarded and with a start date of July 1st, 2026, with an end date of June 30th, 2027. And we intend to award grants to applicants who submit the most compelling proposals and demonstrate that they have the capacity to design, implement, and sustain a quality, innovative program that advances the CAC's aim and objectives. All proposals, as I mentioned, will be screened by Creative Arts Collective staff initially, and then we will also have to check for minimum criteria and alignment. And then we'll have both an internal review board and an external review board who will take a look at those as well. And that's really with the goal to get as many eyes on them as possible, to have as wide of a range of perspectives on reviewing these as possible, to get as much equity and fairness as we're hoping to award the most compelling LOIs. So some just very basic material. Applicants must provide all required materials and documents by stated deadlines, offer work that exemplifies or adheres to the core values of the CAC, clearly communicate the connection of the proposed program to the Christian story and faith, commit to producing art not only in a singular form, but also to become involved in the CAC network, And just a note on that, our goal is, in our name, we're the Creative Arts Collective, and that doesn't just refer to our lovely team here in Nashville, Tennessee, but it refers to this larger um, demographic out there of people who are doing work, like you guys, who are doing work at this intersection of Christianity and the arts. The CAC was launched with this idea of, this work has been happening, but oftentimes people doing this work can feel very isolated. And so one of our core desires is to get people connected who are doing this work to see what can God do. God created us to live in the context of community. And so I believe we create the best when we're in community, which refers back to even the whole core idea of artisan context. And so there will be an expectation if you're awarded to remain connected vitally to that CAC network as we're continuing to grow that as we move forward. And then lastly, but certainly not least, demonstrate the ability to manage funds and maintain requirements associated with the grant. So we'll see here in just a moment as we walk through the LOI submission page, there is a section where you can outline a budget template. For the LOI, that doesn't have to be entirely well fleshed out just yet, just a general idea of what are you thinking? What's a safe estimate as to what your idea would require to be funded, and then how are those funds divvied out? Now, after the letter of inquiry is submitted, we will invite forward the most compelling submissions to then submit a full grant proposal, excuse me. And the full grant proposal is essentially just a more fleshed out version of the letter of inquiry form. And in that step, there will be an actual budget template that you'll have the opportunity to get a little bit more specific into those itemized budgetary elements to your idea. So as I said, December 19th is our deadline, 5 p.m. Central Time. So now we will, as I said, strongest applicants who submit an LOI will be offered the opportunity to submit a full grant proposal in the competitive process. So we actually, while we're together today, we wanted to show you the actual letter of inquiry form that you'll be submitting through. And the link to this lives on our website, but also before the end of the meeting, I'll put all of these links and a couple of other pertinent ones into the chat so you have them with you before you leave the time today. So this is the screen you'll see when you go to our letter of inquiry page. And you'll see here applications for both of our grant programs. Our Create, Educate, and Network grant program closed at the beginning of November. So you're going to want to click here on 2026 Artists in Context Grant Program, open through December 19th. You'll click Next on the bottom right here, and it will load the actual application page. So it's pretty step-by-step, easy to follow. You'll select in this dropdown your applicant type. Are you an arts affiliated organization, nonprofit, educational institution, or other? That could be a church, a school, most likely a church would fall in that other category. Basic information about who you are, who you're connected to, what is your role, contact information, of course, organization and institution name, applicant address, where are you located, and again, we've just made the disclaimer, all projects must be taking place and operational within the United States to be eligible to receive Creative Arts Collective funding. If there are any additional team members that you would like to note for us who are going to be involved with you in the project, or perhaps if you are not the project leader and you're submitting on behalf of another individual in your organization, this would be the opportunity to just list those people so that we have an awareness of who all is involved. And you'll see this add button here. You can add I can't recall the exact number that we've limited to, but you're able to add several individuals to that who you would like to note. And then this sort of short answer response here is to describe the applicant's mission, constituencies, organizational structure. Is there a staff? Is there a board that oversees the organization? Any sort of denominational or theological affiliation? That this is an opportunity to just give us kind of an idea of who you are, what's your leadership, how do you function, what are you associated to within the Christian faith. And then if you have any kind of portfolio information, if your organization has a website, a Substack, any kind of on or other online portfolio, social media links, we really like when applicants share this information because it does give us an opportunity to just see directly who you are, what is the work that you're doing, what's previous work that you've done. And that really gives us an idea of, especially with the idea of applicant capacity, are you able to to sustain the idea that you're proposing to us based on who you are, your history, and previous work? So if you have that information available, you can plug that in into this section here. And then you'll get into the actual kind of meat of the LOI, the actual program information. What is your idea? Um, and we love a really great title. So the title is how, as we're, reviewing these ideas within our team, within our external review board, the title is really what gives us just a quick idea of what is this. And so just know that any title that you put in this submission form is a working title. It does not have to be the finalized, um, this is the program that we're hoping to engage with this artist in context at our university, and it has to be called what we put on this form. It's just a working title to help you sort of flesh out what is this, what can it be, and helps us, especially in just referring and understanding what the project is. There'll be a drop down here for art form. So you see we have several listed here. However, there's also an other section. If this project falls outside of any of these guidelines here, or excuse me, media here. We also, I think I noticed in the chat there was a question earlier of can the project cross out of the bounds of one particular art form? The answer is yes. We have this multidisciplinary option here as well. So, the Creative Arts Collective seeks to support churches, organizations, and institutions to host an artist in context in their local community to meet the objective of creating and curating works of art. The outcome of the Artist in Context program will be an increased visibility of the arts and appreciation of diverse forms of artistic expression that inspire people to encounter God. And I read that again intentionally because we have conveniently put it right into the application for you just to make it convenient as a guiding principle. It's right there in front of you as you're thinking through this information. So here in this section, how does your proposed program meet this objective and fulfill the CAC's intended outcomes? This really gives us an idea of, do you align? Does your idea align with those core values, those core objectives? And again, that helps you sort of flesh that out yourself as you're in this stage of processing ideas. And again, we've put our aspirational aim here. And so again, that will again help to give us an idea of how does your project and organization and proposed artists and context align with the CAC and what the CAC large scale is aiming to accomplish. Executive summary is kind of the meat of the program or of the proposal, if you will. So this is going to be a concise overview of the entire project. All the purpose of the program and highlights of key activities and outputs. What do you hope throughout the life of the program and especially at the end of the program, what do you hope to accomplish? What do you hope to see created and curated from this project? Is that a visual art installation in your university? Is that a songwriting project from an artist collaborative? The options are endless, but what is the overarching view and what do you hope to see come out of that? And then program description. This is just a detailed description of the program proposed, key activities, the purpose, the inspiration and motivation behind it. And if applicable, this is where you have the opportunity to reflect on the annual theme. Again, as Nick and I mentioned earlier, that is an optional component. You do not have to reflect on the annual theme. This would also be where you reflect substantively on theological and scriptural themes, just to show that the project is substantively engaging with the Christian story. And again, I mentioned this just a moment ago, but outputs and outcomes, these are your deliverables. What do we expect to see? What do you expect to accomplish through this? Key activities, outputs, anticipated outcomes, and how will the artist engage with, collaborate with, and benefit the host community? So that's really the unique identifier, as we've talked about today, of the Artist in Context program. Is it is meant to be in context. What the artist is creating or curating is meant to be directly influenced and created in context with the community that they are in, with the idea that if that artist was not in context with that community, the anticipated outcome is not possible. So this is where you can get really specific on how is that artist going to do that? Is that a series of meetings, a series of talks with students? Is that collaborating with other individuals in that organization? Maybe if it, for example, if it's a university, maybe it's an artist collaborating with theologians or other art faculty or media faculty. Again, the options are endless, but this section will be where you really communicate the how is the artist going to be in context. And then a brief timeline. Again, this does not have to be incredibly specific. This would be a rough, you could even do month by month, what we anticipate to happen in July, in August, and September, etc. And again, does not have to be incredibly specific. And then lastly, but certainly not least, budget. So this is where you give us an idea of your estimated total budget. And this section here, are you requesting a different amount from the total budget of the program? Maybe you're requesting 50,000 from Creative Arts Collective, but you have other funding sources. That helps us just to communicate that to us, and to also can the project happen without Creative Arts Collective funding or not? And again, budget overview, again, at this stage in the application with the LOI stage, you don't have to get incredibly specific. It does help if you have that idea, if you have that information at this stage. But again, it does not have to be itemized line by line budgetary. There will be an opportunity to do that in the second stage of the proposal if you're invited forward to that second stage. And again, as I mentioned, if there are other funding sources, you can include those here, yes, no, or pending. And then very lastly, how did you hear about this grant program? So the Creative Arts Collective, we're still a relatively new organization. We're only a couple of years into our lifetime. And so we're curious about how are you hearing about us? So that's just an opportunity for you to share that. And that just helps us collect that information for demographics' sake. Then you will do confirm and accept and submit. And then that will be submitted to our grant portal, and our internal staff review team will be then reviewing those. And just some timeline, the final grant award announcements will be announced in May, and we'll be moving through our review timeline between the December 19th deadline of the submission portal through that timeline. And my mind is blanking. If any of my team members could remind me when the decision will be communicated on who will be invited into that, I will let anyone
January
answer that.
30th.
Thank you, Nick. January 30th is when decisions will be communicated on if your proposal will be invited forward to that second stage. And we'll have some other information sent out about that closer to that time. So that is all the information that we have for you. So there've already been some questions trickling in through the chat, but I want to just open the floor now to the chat. You can use the hand raise function here on Teams. Any questions that you have, our team will hopefully be able to answer those. And I will say quickly, just a quick stipulation on the questions. So we are able to answer questions, any clarifying questions around our process. However, we're not able to provide any specific feedback on project ideas or specific project components. That's just to keep the application process as fair and equitable as possible for everyone. So we will hop into questions. We've got one hand raised. I'm going to probably not pronounce your name correctly. Sekou Brown. We'll go to you. Please forgive my mispronunciation of your name if I did.
Only if you turn the grant over to me now, Caleb. Kidding. Sekou is the name.
Sekou.
Man, first of all, man, this is a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. A friend of mine told me about this, so I'm really privileged and excited about it, and hope to be a part of the family of artists someday. But my questions were pretty pointed. One, with the application up here, I want to just get a little clarification on the level of involvement with the organization, right? Because yeah, even what you have up here now, you put the applicant type in, you have to hold a position within that organization. That's, let's say a church or an art studio or something, like when you say position title, like, just could you clarify there? And then I have another question
Sure.
as well. Do you want to
Sure.
answer that, or get my second question as well?
Yeah, that's a quick answer. Nick, if do you
Okay.
want to take that one?
Yes, one of the hard things about doing a grant application online is that you want to have a lot of if thens, but then we would just confuse everybody. So we assumed in the design stages that it would probably be the host org that would fill out the application, because they would know a lot of the pertinent information. But if the artist is filling it out, you are welcome to say you're the artist, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you are employed by the organization, just that the both parties understand that as a partnership. So don't get too caught up on the application. If you have any questions like that, feel free to continue to reach out.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. But it definitely, because yeah, I don't know if I'd want to bog them down with getting this application in, right? It'd just be another thing. It is okay for the artist to do it, if I'm hearing that correctly.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then my second question was more about just kind of the breakdown of what funds could go for. I'm a filmmaker, writer, filmmaker, right? So when it comes to film, I don't know if any of the other past artists got in the film. I didn't see anything marketing related on that list of items that the funds could be used for. So I just wanted to just kind of ask, is marketing something we could use for a film deliverable?
Absolutely. Yeah. Those examples we gave were meant to truly be examples. The restrictions, I will say the restrictions are the project must be US based. If you have questions about what could be international, feel free to reach out, but the project must be US based. The funding cannot go towards general operating funding for the institution. It cannot go to a capital campaign of any kind, and it cannot go to an endowment of any kind. But outside of that, anything that operates this program is going to be part of the funding. We understand that.
Perfect. Awesome. And then I guess one final question while I'm here. I may have to build a team in terms of putting together the film, right? So you guys would want those names listed. I don't know if I saw a slot in there to potentially provide some of their work. But if there wasn't one for any team members, could I not only add, when I'm adding my portfolio work, add theirs as well? Maybe put in a Google Drive or something where you guys could just see all of our work.
Yeah, totally. As said, the limitations of technology. If you could find a place to put that in that makes sense within the application, please do. I do know the second stage of this grant process, for those who are invited, has a few more spaces to kind of include that kind of thing. But anything that you feel is pertinent in this first stage, make some space for it, and we'll try to find a way to, include it in the review process.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Crystal Johnson, I believe you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. Hello. Thank you so much. I have a quick question. So I saw in the chat where someone had asked about a for-profit LLC. And so I have an art studio business that's a for-profit business, but I'm also creating a 501c3 that's almost there. Can I still apply even though it's not official yet? I mean, I have a website, I have everything created. The documents for the 501c3 have been submitted. Can I still apply? or should I try to get another organization to apply with me? How does that work? Did that question make sense, or did I just
It does
confuse
make
you?
sense, I think. So what you're saying is that that your artist studio would be the host organization in this situation?
Yes, until I can get the 501c3 actually official. I'm in the process of starting the paperwork.
Got it.
Or should I just find another organization to apply with me? Which
Not necessarily, no. This is one of those where I'll give you the legal answer, which is, we are not restricting to nonprofits. So a for-profit organization can, of course, be part of this partnership. If you were going to do it where both orgs are connected to you as the artist, as long as you kind of spelled out what that looked like within the application so that we understood that the artist wasn't just working out of their studio to do this program, that there would actually be some integration within the community and context, that's fine. We can allow that flexibility.
and one more question, and I have two artists in mind that can collaborate. Can you do that? Have two artists on the application that are going to collaborate to tie to the vision and all that kind of stuff?
I'm going to call an audible on this one. Thankfully, my colleagues in grant making can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't see a restriction for it being more than one artist. As long as it works, I don't have a problem as for the program aspect of it.
Okay. Alrighty.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Caleb, I can jump next. So, Jameson Galt.
Hey, friends, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Will Jameson from New York City. Thank you so much for your work. I have two quick questions to try to keep them real brief and targeted. I've applied to a couple grants through you guys in the past, and I'm pretty flummoxed by the budget, even though I appreciated, I think it was Caleb's sort of initial guidance today. But if everything, so a lot of my projects are from scratch. And so the question is like, I could ask for 50, I could ask for 80. I wouldn't even consider taking any remuneration unless I got more than the base number. And I guess I'm just kind of asking for like, oof, like when you look, does it make a big difference to you which number we ask for? If we ask for too much and you're like, hey, would you be willing to do 50? I don't want it to be a deal breaker, I guess is my question.
Yeah, we do occasionally award partial grants if there's, questions like that, either proposed by the applicant or we internally kind of have some questions around something. So we're comfortable doing a partial if it feels like that's the necessary step. And yeah, don't don't be too scared by the budget. We want to just generally know how much funding you think goes towards what.
Perfect. That's helpful. The other one is really related to, just for context, I am an ordained minister, so that's where this question is coming from. But for this grant, I'm curious how explicit you want the Christian themes to be in the art, in the project that is put forward. For example, if it was a film and you were exploring themes of envy and fratricide, or and maybe there's some minor faith things in the background there. Give me just a sense of that for you guys.
I would love to give you more of a sense. As a fellow ordained person, I can appreciate the desire to have a little bit of imagination around it. As long as you can kind of show that there's an alignment with our mission and objectives, we are not going to be, we don't have guidelines internally. There's no secret sauce of this is Christian enough, this is not Christian enough. It really is how well does the application tell the story of both what it is going to be and then how it would align with who we are and what we're trying to do as an organization.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think Barbara Sartorius, you had your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering if the projects can take place in multiple communities, such as workshops in different churches. And if so, is it preferable to have them be in churches of different denominations or in one denomination, but in different locations?
That is a fascinating question, and one that thus far I don't think we have received. So I'll kind of do the same thing. the legal answer is we haven't got a restriction on what that looks like. So if you make a case and it looks good, then yeah, go for it. Uh, one of our values, of course, is that theological ecumenicity. So I would say that it might be a little bit better to have multiple represented faith stories, but also we're not going to be restrictive based on that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we've had a few hands raised. I'm not sure the order they have been raised in. So we'll go to Kirsten Mount.
Yeah, thank you. I had to step out for a second, so somebody might have asked this, but can the funding be used for marketing or outreach at all?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
I love a quick question.
Okay, Asher, we'll go to you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so I'm planning to apply uh, as a documentarian for a Christian magazine which has been around for 100 years. But my proposal was to basically collect stories all over US about immigrants and the theme of welcoming the stranger. So it will be not like in one place, but the magazine is based in a couple of cities in the US. So is that like a feasible grant proposal?
30 seconds ago, I answered something sort of similar, so I'll say the same that we don't have a restriction on that kind of thing. So if you can kind of show an integration with those contexts and alignment with what we as an organization are doing, I encourage you to apply. That's a new angle that we had not considered. So please.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you,
I-
guys. Nick, go ahead.
I was gonna say I see one more hand raised. Toe, two, why? I look forward to this one.
Oh, I think that's probably me. Sorry, I don't
Yeah.
typically use this app, so it's I'm Tony.
Ah. No, actually, no, now you're just toe Y.
I kind of like that. Let's go with that. Yeah, I just had a couple of questions really, and one was answered sort of in the chat, and I know you're wanting to work with either nonprofits or faith-based orgs. But I also had a question about like a for-profit organization and whether or not you guys are looking for the organization to be, I don't know if financially needy is the right way to say it, but being an artist in residence at like Amazon, would be be a lot different than being an artist in residence at like a local church to help carry that. Is there, so I guess the question is, is there a weighting to that from your perspective? Are you going to weight the applications greater if the need is greater, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll kind of say the thing, and this is again, there's no secret to this. We don't restrict it just to nonprofit organizations. So if a for-profit has an arts and context program that fits our mission and objectives, great. And that again, there's no, we don't weight things a certain way. There's no secret rubric. We put everything out there.
Gotcha. Yeah, great. I just had one other question. If the artwork would look different for the project than it would in my normal practice, for example, if I'm in the context of like doing a certain type of artwork that pays the bills, in other words, but I'm looking at trying to get funding for an idea that would be new, and I might not have that stuff in my portfolio, does that, I don't know, does that fit, I guess, or would you still encourage an application, if it would be much different than the portfolio of work the body of work that I've already have.
No, you are welcome to propose whatever you want to propose. Any additional documentation you give us as far as backstory, portfolio, that's all helpful. It's not required. What's required is what's in the application. So if you, want to try something new, I think that's what art is. So feel free to try something new.
Cool. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Pointing out one question in the chat. Can we expand on what capital expenses would mean? And then Lizzie, that question's from you. If this explanation doesn't answer it, you're welcome to email us.
As the previous person who had to kind of deal with compliance before starting in this role, I'll let my colleague who's doing our financial work in the back correct me if he would like to. But capital expenses, typically that's more of a legal term. If you're working with an organization that is trying to fund a new building project or trying to build a campaign for sustainability, those are capital expenses. The idea is, capital in the truest term of building up of one's financial base. So the goal is these funds don't go towards building up and sustaining one's organization's financial future. It's purely for the sake of the project. Great.
I think Sekou, did you raise your hand again?
Yeah, I did. Just so, the core values and the theme I just can't find on the website for some reason, and it may not be the website, it may be me. But can you, like, is it what category is it under where I could find that information?
Yeah, I'm actually going to send links to all of that in the chat before we end the meeting. But if you do want to look, I can actually show everyone right now. Let me get to that screen. So if you go to share here. So if you go to our website homepage, you'll go to, if you go to about, excuse me, if you go to grants, go to the Artists in Context grant, scroll down and you'll see number 1 here, read the request for proposals. You click that, it opens essentially the same presentation that we've gone through in our time together. And you'll see there listed the core values and the biblical theme. So that's where you can find that. I'll send a direct link to that in the chat here before we leave today. And also all of the information that we've gone through during our time, you'll be able to see on this web page, including the grant calendar, those pertinent dates, the deadline, decision dates, proposal deadlines, and proposal notices. And then again, that request for proposals. So that's where you can find that. You can also, while I've got it pulled up here, if you want to take a look at some of our current grantees, this could give you an idea of some of the projects that have been funded so far. So at the top, you'll see our Create, Educate, and Network grantees, which is our other grant program. But if you scroll down, you'll see our current Artists in Context grantees. So these 5 were our initial invitational grantees. And you'll be able to click on each of these and read a little bit more about who they are, about the host institutions, and what the projects are focused on, to give you an idea, kind of like, okay, these are sort of, just an idea of the kind of projects that we funded and sort of that the structure of the project that we're kind of looking for. But again, not limited to these. We have a choreographer, a visual artist, a musician, a few musicians, again, not limiting to any of that. So yeah, please take advantage of all of that information on the website. Again, I'll share these direct links in the chat. And I think we've got a couple of other questions. Last year's theme, Tennessee Art League has asked, last year's theme was performing Shalom. So that was looking at the Genesis story. So we've been very creative that, we've gone from Genesis to Exodus. And so we do have outlined in our sort of overall plan themes that we're moving toward. And so in the coming years, we'll be moving more towards some New Testament themes just for some awareness sake. So last year's theme was performing shalom, looking at the Genesis story. And then Ali has asked, can you explain the main difference between the two grants? So yes, quickly. So the Artists in Context grant looks, again, it's a host institution hosting a creative artist within context of their community. And that artist is then creating or curating a new work based on the life and the influence and community within that community. The Create, Educate, and Network Grant Program is a bit of a broader spectrum. It's also a larger funding range. It's those grants are $80,000 to $250,000, and they can fall into any of the category of our other two objectives. So they can be creating and curating new works of art, educate, or network. So it's kind of a wider cast of what the focus of the program is. Again, it's the full range of art types, art media, and it can be a wide range of applicant types, whether that's an individual artist or a church or an artist collaborative or a theologian or scholar, a church leader. So it's kind of a broader view. You can also see that information on our website too, under the grants dropdown. There's specific information around excuse me, the kind of the more specific stipulations of the Create, Educate, and Network program. And then does having one make you ineligible for the other? So our limitation is any applicant can only have one active grant with the CAC within a calendar year. So if you are awarded an Artists in Context grant for 2026 into 2027, you could not have another active grant, say through the Create, Educate, and Network program with us within 2026 or 2027. You would be eligible to apply in a cycle beyond 2027. However, you can apply for both of those programs. Currently, if you were awarded one, you would not be awarded the other one within the same calendar year. And the
Can you say that again? So if you were awarded the other one, you can't do another one, or can you? Say that again.
So it's based on timing. So the limitation is if you're awarded a grant, you can only have one active grant from the CAC within a calendar year. So if you're awarded a grant in fall of 2026, that would indicate, and it runs through, so for instance, the Artists in Context grant begins July 1st, 2026, goes through June 30th, 2027. That would mean you have an active grant with CAC in both 2026 and 2027. So if you then wanted to apply for the Create, Educate, and Network program, that would be, I have to do a little bit of mental math here. You would not be eligible for that grant program until the January 1st, 2028 start date. So I know it's muddy, but I hope that clarifies it a little bit.
I saw a new hand from Lisa.
Yes, Lisa.
Or Louisa, sorry. I'm trying to read things in real time. Lisa, yeah, Lisa Du Bois.
Wait a minute. I'm trying to unmute. I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No worries.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand with the not being eligible for two grants, because I work I'm part of a drama ministry in my church, and I'm connected to the church, and I would want them to be the hosting church, but I would want them to be the organization that goes for the grant. And I'm collecting this information for them, but I'm also an individual artist with the LLC that works in the community. So would it be that my name could not be on the application for the church where you guys show that drop down menu of everybody who's involved in whatever the program or the project is? because as we put forth the application, I would be involved with the program and the project, but I wouldn't necessarily be the one initially applying for this because I'm collecting this information for my church.
Courtney, would you like to take that one?
Could you ask that question one more time?
My question is, I'm collecting this information for my church, right? Which I want them to be the ones that would apply for this grant for what the church is, what they're trying to do. So I wouldn't necessarily be one who would be seeking that I think you called it the curate and educate. I wouldn't be the one seeking that, but within the program that they're trying to do, my name would be listed as somebody that's trying to bring or helping them bring the program to fruition. So my question is, because I will be working with the church to help bring this program to fruition, I could not apply as totally an individual artist with who has her own LLC and works in the community, Christian art form in the community.
So are you
because
saying
we can't have, because when you guys was explaining that if we have one, we're ineligible for the other, I was thinking about it in the context, okay, is that because if we're spearheading and applying for one, that will cancel us out to apply for the other? But if I'm not applying for this and my church is applying for this, even though I would be one of the participants in the program of bringing that to fruition, that disqualified me for applying for my own individual art grant. That's what I'm kind of asking.
No, you are welcome to apply for both programs. I
Okay.
will say both programs are highly competitive. And so we encourage artists and organizations to apply for both. It's only if a project or an organization would be awarded where that would come into play. But you're more than welcome to apply.
Okay. So it still wouldn't be, so I still wouldn't qualify to, I guess both awards I wouldn't be able to participate or receive. You understand what I'm trying to say? Because if it's the church, I'm not necessarily, or maybe you guys look at it as I am, but I was seeing it as I'm not necessarily the one receiving the award for the church if the church was to actually win it. It's them, right? But I'm working with them to bring the program to the fruition, as opposed to me applying as an individual. Now I am receiving the rewards. Do you guys consider that like double dipping or no? That's where I'm kind of, that's kind of the gray area for me. That's what I'm kind of trying to understand.
I don't think so. I think as long as it's awarded to a different organization or a different individual, there could be potential crossover with artists in the whole community of Christianity and the arts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Let's see here. Okay, we're over time, so we want to respect everyone's time. Are there we'll do a last call for questions. If anyone has any questions you'd like to ask during this time. Okay, Barbara, just to clarify what we were talking about, you can apply for both types of grants, but only do one. Yes, so as Courtney mentioned, you are welcome to apply for both grants at any time. However, when it comes to the actual awarding of the grant, if you've submitted an application for both, you could not be awarded both. And again, it's a highly competitive process. And so we're receiving a lot of applications for both. So it would be unlikely that would be a reality, but you are more than welcome to apply for both programs. Okay, I think Annie will do a final call for questions, and please, you are more than welcome to contact us. I'll put our team email here in the chat for you to send any specific questions that you may have. We're more than happy to connect with you guys offline. So collective@belmont.edu is that contact email. And then I'll also just in the chat here, while we are still together, I'll send a couple of links to the Artists in Context webpage where you'll find all the information that we covered today. We'll have the request for proposals interactive presentation that we went through today. And then we will have our letter of inquiry portal, just so you guys have all of that here easily accessible. So feel free to take note of those links, and we thank you guys so much for joining us. It's always great to get to connect with everyone who's expressing interest, and we thank you for expressing interest, and we look forward to reading your proposals. And so if you have any further questions, please contact us at that collective@belmont.edu email, and one of us will be in touch very soon. So thank you guys again. Have a great day.